Good afternoon and welcome to the 21st Century Task Force Town Hall Forum. I'm Lori Buiteweg, President of the State Bar of Michigan, and welcome you all here today, whether you are here with us physically in the room or via virtual presence. I am very honored and pleased to introduce to you the Chief Justice of the Michigan Supreme Court, Robert P. Young Jr., who is going to open up for us this afternoon. Chief Justice.
Good afternoon. My job is pretty straightforward, and that's to welcome you all to the Hall of Justice, and I'd say a few remarks. One of the things that I think has become quite evident is when the State Bar of Michigan and the court work collaboratively and in partnership, very significant things happen. The last time this kind of engagement occurred, the Crossroads report emerged, and there were a number of action items that were identified in that report. Let me just go through some of them with you to remind you. We had promote effective consolidated court functions. Virtually every county court in the state now has a consolidation plan of some sort, in either effectuated or in progress. We have installed single chief judges in over the multiple courts in those courts where they are physically together. Rebalance and downsize the judgeships throughout the state. We got the legislature to enact a 40-judge reduction across the state, and we are well on our way to accomplishing that reduction to meet our caseload through attrition. Advance effective problem-solving courts. We have a very robust array of problem-solving courts that actually have demonstrative results. We know that in the drug and alcohol specialty courts, we have vastly reduced recidivism that are resulting in people returning to their communities and not being incarcerated. And that's just a very successful program. Create business courts. We did that. Greater Detroit court transparency, accountability. Every court in this state, including this one, the Supreme Court, has a dashboard. We are one of the few states in the country where every judge has a performance set of objectives, and we report them and measure and report them. Reform indigent counsel defense. We now have in effect the committee that has made recommendations recently to our court for our consideration. We have posted those indigent first standards so that you can comment on them before we act on them. Increase the effectiveness of courts handling child welfare cases. We've aggressively worked on that. We have improved translation services within the courts. We have an aggressive LEP rule that we promulgated a few years ago and are implementing it. Established statewide legal self-help website to address the problem of self-represented parties. We have one of the most utilized such websites in the country. Adopt uniform judicial information and technology standards. That's in progress. We have, as a matter of fact, we had just got the legislature to fund e-filing in the state, and we are now implementing the process of getting everybody in the state on e-filing, and so that the standards that are associated with that are in process as well. And finally, adopt standards for indigency, fees, fines, and costs. We just published a set of court rules addressing that issue. And finally, stabilize, modernize trial court compensation. For those of you who have been observant, you'll know that this week, the House Appropriations Committee, after the Senate had nearly unanimously passed Senate Bill 56, the House Appropriations Committee passed that same measure 27-2. We're very hopeful that soon we will have a very significant change in the way the trial court and the Court of Appeals judges' compensation is handled, and it won't be in the SOC system. So I went through that list simply to remind you that when you and the court come up with actionable, visionary kinds of goals, they can be accomplished. And I'm equally hopeful that this 21st century task force will come up with visionary proposals that will move not only the bar and the practice forward, but the judiciary as well. So I commend you on this effort, and thank you for your interest and involvement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief
I'm
Justice.
Tom Rombach. I'm the immediate past president of the State Bar of Michigan. I'd like to welcome all you here, certainly echoing the Chief Justice's remarks. I had the distinct honor of appointing during my presidential term this auspicious 21st century practice task force and its 3 committees. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the 166 volunteers that went to bat for us in this endeavor during the course of, I think, 15 work groups under the 3 committees. And they've met 130 times between April and November of 2015 and donated approximately 4,000 hours of work to this undertaking. So, I mean, it's truly inspiring for me to have this concept to come to fruition beyond my wildest dreams. And certainly, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the staff of the State Bar of Michigan. I know when it was first envisioned, this was probably a smaller bore undertaking, and then it took a life of its own, thanks to many of the people in the audience today and out in cyberspace, each of whom volunteered their critical time and effort here. So if I could have a round of applause for the SBM staff that made this all possible. As everyone here knows, and I will prevent myself from preaching to the choir, this is an absolute critical time for the profession. We're in a time of dynamic change. A lot of the articles of faith that we've taken on from past generations are being questioned and perhaps even need change. And so certainly this conversation is one that's particularly timely. Our task force itself, which I often refer to as the 36 Masters of Legal Universe, and I would have to pay deference to the Chief Justice in his own building and the other 7 ultimate masters of the Michigan Legal Universe here. But they've met twice already and made considerable progress with the input of our 3 committees and 15 work groups. But they have a final meeting where they're going to put forth their recommendations on March 1st. It's at this final meeting that they're going to take into consideration all the input they've had, and this undertaking is our grassroots effort to try to get out in the trenches here and find out what rank-and-file lawyers are thinking, what questions they're asking, what comments they have, and what solutions that they would likely promote. So we certainly our State Bar leadership under Lori Buiteweg's at the helm that they're going to take into consideration. Our Board of Commissioners are going to have to pass judgment on this work product as well, ultimately as our Representative Assembly, our final policy-making body. So we'd like everyone to be able to contribute to our thought leadership here today. Finally, I also want to make sure that each and every one of you here and also listening to the live stream or even in the archives of the State Bar memories, know how much I personally appreciate your volunteer time and effort. It's incredibly gratifying, an organization of 44,000 lawyers, to see this percentage of people step up to the challenge at my invitation as well as their own initiative. So again, thank you very much for that. At this point, I'd like to turn the helm to our illustrious Executive Director, Janet Welch, who's going to lay out our mission for this afternoon. Janet.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for your vision in forcing us to do what lawyers are very uncomfortable doing naturally, which is doing things differently and thinking about the future. I'm going to start, my role is really to give you a quick snapshot of the issues that drove the task force and are driving the discussion. Here are 7 present-day conditions that really set the stage for why we need to have this task force, starting with the persistent and rising inability to meet the legal needs of the poor, and I would add, and the middle class increasingly. We are one of the few professions that takes as an ethical component of our mission the responsibility of providing our services to people who cannot afford them. And that's a relatively new, modern development in the history of the legal profession, to the point where there are many of us in this room who have lived in a time when there was not a legal right to counsel in criminal cases, the pre-Gideon v. Wainwright days. And we haven't quite nailed that yet. Despite really, really great generosity on the part of the legal profession, we have not put a dent in the legal need. There was a study in New York, in the New York courts, that revealed that over 90% of the people in housing, family, and consumer debt matters in those courts lacked any legal representation. In Michigan, in 2013, 40% of divorce cases were filed by self-represented plaintiffs. In some counties, it's more than twice that. 68% of cases overall had one or more self-represented litigants. 42% of divorce cases had no attorney involvement at all. These are really chilling statistics. At the same time, item number 2, rise in unemployment and underemployment of new lawyers. So this is a several years trend that's been going on. It probably hit rock bottom so far in 2011 and has ticked up a bit since then. But even the good news on that front is worrisome. The unemployment rate of the class of 2014, which is the last class that we have statistics that are full on, that unemployment rate actually got a little bit better, but the reason it got better was that the classes are so much smaller these days. Fewer people are going to law school at the same time that baby boomers are hitting the retirement age in increasing numbers and are leaving the profession. So there's real evidence that we may have reached peak lawyer, and we need to figure out what that means and what to do about it. So, third phenomenon, average law school debt burden over $100,000. In some cases, way over $100,000. I remember a time when that was a really eye-popping number, and those were days when many lawyers were walking out of law school into six-figure jobs in big law. That's not the case anymore, and people are walking out with these debts regularly or more without the prospect of employment. That's a real problem, and we need to figure out what to do about it. Number 4, the perception that too many law school grads are not practice ready. If you ask any lawyer, especially of my generation, I think we would all say we were not practice ready when we graduated. I mean, raise your hand if you were practice ready when you got your law degree, right? The difference is that for many generations, of course, when the employment rate was better and the jobs were more plentiful, law school grads could walk into jobs where they were mentored by seasoned attorneys. And that is not the 21st century paradigm right now, and we need to figure out how to deal with that issue. Number 5, anemic or declining median lawyer income. So this is just in yesterday. The Georgetown Law report for 2016 says 2015 saw a 6th consecutive year of largely flat demand, weakening pricing power, and failing productivity. The report notes that since 2008, the law firm market has changed in significant and fundamental ways. Clients have assumed active control of the organization's staffing, scheduling, and pricing of legal matters, where previously they had largely left those decisions in the hands of law firms. 6, new competition from non-lawyers through online marketing. LegalZoom, Rocket Lawyer, Avo, those are some of the big guns, but there's a proliferation of enterprises, upstarts who want to get into the legal services market. This phenomenon is driven by an estimate that there is a $45 billion latent market of people who need legal services and can afford to pay for them but are not in the market for whatever reason. Obviously that's an estimate, but there are people making big bets, investors making big bets about that, and they really believe that the market is at least that big. So in many cases, these outfits are owned and operated by non-lawyers, and to a great extent they're operating outside of the boundaries of regulation. The Georgetown Law report that was issued yesterday says that these competitors of alternative legal services, accounting firms, and consultants continue to grow market share. Number 7, the transformation in the delivery of legal services through technology and Leanlaw. That is the big item that, the big hope, opportunity, and also threat that looms over the entire way in which we do business. So, all of these factors have really led to a proliferation of experiments and conversations and studies all over the country, all over the world, in law schools and in boardrooms. There's a whole new vocabulary that's developed. If you want to plunge into that vocabulary and sample it and try to figure out what people are talking about when they talk about legal futures, go to sbmbestlegalfuture.com. We have a glossary that will tell you what it is that everyone is talking about. So even though the conversation is taking place everywhere across the country, as far as I know, there is no jurisdiction that has done what Michigan is trying to do. This is a point of pride, state pride, that we can all cling to. Only Michigan has brought together practitioners, all 3 branches of government, law school deans, and regulators, and put them in the same space to talk about what to do about all the problems that we've just discussed. So I want to give you a picture of the 3 committees that Tom mentioned. The committees and work groups, this is how they have been organized with 3 different perspectives. The perspective of looking at the problems in terms of access and affordability, in terms of practice, boots on the ground, what's happening to the practitioners, what are the possibilities, and in terms of regulation, does our regulatory structure help or hurt? What needs to happen to make it achieve the purposes for which regulation happens? And many of the people that you'll be hearing from this afternoon were part of this committee and work group structure. Finally, these are the problems that have been on the horizon that they attacked. And as part of figuring out what Michigan should do to address these problems, it is important to know what we're trying to accomplish. And that is having a vision for what the best legal future looks like. Because even though we can't do anything about Michigan's weather, we can do something about the climate for access to justice in the legal profession in Michigan, and that's what you're going to be hearing about today. And with that, it's my pleasure to turn the mic back over to State President Lori Buiteweg.
Thanks, Janet. So I'm about to turn this over to Bruce and Julie, who are our moderators. But first, I want to say thank you again for your participation, and to just tell you that it is very, very important to me that you voice your truths, that even if you think you're in the minority, you tell us what your concerns are about the ideas and the thoughts that you're hearing today, and that you share your ideas, your thoughts, your concerns. Give us your feedback. This is your chance. This is your opportunity to speak up about these issues. As the bar president, it is my responsibility to take what Tom started with my full and complete support, which was to form this task force and to take whatever the ultimate report is and to roll it out in front of our Board of Commissioners on some of these issues and to get their thoughts and consensus on it. We have a wonderful continuum of leadership in the bar right now, with Tom starting this and me trying to get the report launched, and then after me will be Larry Nolan, who will continue to work with the product of the report. So I'm very pleased to tell you that we have that we are all of like mind, and that we want to move the profession forward with your input and your ideas. So with that in mind, I want to just tell you too, I'm not a member of the task force. I'm ex officio. I've been to most of the meetings, but I am not a voting member of the task force, just so that you know. So at this point, I will turn it over to my esteemed colleagues and former bar presidents, Bruce Courtade and Julie Fershtman, and in just a moment Janet and Tom and I will leave the dais, but Tom has a comment first.
I just also want to take this opportunity. This would not have been possible without two of the finest bar leaders, without exception, that I've ever met, and that's Julie Fershtman and Bruce Courtade. So if I could have a round of applause for their leadership in this endeavor.
Thank you, Tom. I'm going to try and keep us somewhat on schedule. According to the calendar that we had before we started this, we're only 13 minutes behind right now. So I am Bruce Courtade, former State Bar President. Welcome. Thank you to those of you who have been working with us throughout these many months. Thank you to those who are making their first appearance today, because we really value the input not only of those who have been in the trenches so far, but those who are bringing fresh perspectives to this. We have a live audience here at the Hall of Justice, but we also have a number of people who are participating virtually. We're going to be taking questions from them and from audience members. We encourage those questions. We have 5 panels of experts that you're going to be hearing from, who have been invested in this conversation, who are going to be presenting various topics to you. A little bit of a spoiler alert for you: not all of the panelists agree. Another thing that I want to really drive home is that there is no final recommendation at this point. We are still in the fact-gathering stage, so there are things that we have considered on the task force. We have recommendations that have been made to the task force, but there's no anything close to final product yet. So please don't think anything that you're hearing today is the final word, because it very well likely may not be. Each panel is going to start with a PowerPoint, which presents basically the problem that we have identified and also our vision for how to address that problem. As our panelists move on to the stage, we'll identify them by name and begin the conversation after they're seated.
We have allocated 30 minutes, up to 30 minutes for each panel, and if our conversation concludes earlier, given the interests of time, because we're already over, we will conclude earlier and move on to the next panel. Once a panel has been seated, and they'll be seated up here, we invite everybody in the audience who's here with us at the Hall of Justice to approach the microphone. And for those seated here, the virtual people can't see, there's a microphone toward the back of the room. Please approach the microphone to present questions to the panel. Whoever is moderating that discussion, whether it's Bruce or me, will recognize you and give you an opportunity. But please, if you have a question, for the panel, keep your question to 2 minutes if possible. You have an opportunity potentially to ask more than one question, but each question should be up to that point. If time permits and others have been given an opportunity to present, you'll have a chance to bring another question. And as you've heard, there are people participating virtually. They're watching us on video. You also have an opportunity to present questions to us. Virtual participating people will see that there is an online form. You'll be able to submit written questions. We have a member of the State Bar staff fielding and receiving those questions, and she will present those questions to the individual panelists. When you, virtual people, present a question through the website, we'll make sure that it's considered by the moderators, and we certainly hope we will get to your questions. Excuse me, as you can see, I'm recovering from a cold. We've invited panelists from all 5 panels to contribute to the conversation by using the second microphone, which is the microphone up here. Panelists who are seated during a particular discussion point, a particular issue, will have their own microphones over there. So without further delay, seeing as we are already over time, let's move on to our first panel, moderated by Bruce Courtade. Panelists, please come up.